Okay, good morning and welcome to the Index. I'm Frank Girardot, journalist, true crime author, and political follower, I guess. And this is a new podcast that we're starting. Um, with me here is Randy Economy. He needs no introduction to me, but he probably would be great for him to say a few words about himself. Let me just tell you what I know.
Uh-oh.
Randy and I did a radio show together here in Los Angeles about in 2014 and 2015. Randy and I have run some political campaigns together, and uh, we went our separate ways for a while. And Randy, probably best known for running the recall election of Governor Gavin Newsom. But Randy, did I miss anything in that introduction?
Frank, it's great to see you, buddy. And you look fantastic. Yeah, when you're the son of a cobbler, you make good shoes. Is that what they say? And I was blessed to
That's
have an amazing mother work in politics when I was a young child. And so I never knew who was going to be in my backyard or in my living room when I'd come home from junior high or high school, whether it be former Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley or Jimmy Carter, who was running for president at the time. So I just thought that everybody had that type of upbringing. And I went to college in Utah a couple of years later, about 10 years later, and President Reagan got shot. I remember that day. And literally nobody understood politics. And I just was kind of stunned, and I thought everybody was kind of raising it. So I just feel blessed that I've been able to do this and was raised in this, and I've gone on my own for many years and have run more than 300 campaigns, probably more than that. But I think I just feel very blessed, and I'm very excited. And I'm also a former journalist, and I worked in the cable television industry for 20 years. I even helped start Game Show Network. How's that for you?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it
You've
was
got some
cool.
great experience, Randy. I'm
Yeah.
glad we can tap into it.
Well,
Um,
I think we're on to something pretty big here, Frank, and this is an amazing opportunity to be able to explore, um, you know, the current topics of the day, and be able to really focus in on it. So let's blow it out, man.
Great. That's awesome. That's exactly what I want to do. So today I've got a plan for us. We're going to talk about three kind of related stories, and hopefully we can. The reason that we call this the index is because I'd like to sort of um, match up the stories with what's happening in the prediction market. Talk
Hmm.
a little bit about how the prediction market can influence the news as well.
Yes.
So in fact, the first story kind of gets right to the heart of that. And when later on we'll get into the fake poll that affected the Los Angeles mayor's race between Karen Bass and Nithya Raman. Um, and I'd like to segue from that a little bit into a story that I read on Substack by one
Hmm.
of my favorite journalists, Sam Quinones.
Hmm.
He's a former LA Times guy. He's written a couple of books. One's called Dreamland. It's about people recovering from horrible meth addictions,
Hmm.
and how drug addiction is shaping public policy around the United States. It's a great book. Sam has a Substack, and he wrote a really fascinating story about some neighborhoods in Los Angeles and how they've been affected by homelessness in politics. Um, and then finally, I think the last thing that we'll talk about is going to be this kind of ongoing story. It's still relevant though, and that is, back in 2024, at the early part of the presidential election,
Hmm.
when Joe Biden and President Trump were running against each other and had a debate. And Joe Biden, quite honestly, was miserable in that debate.
Terrible.
And Tapper says that during the debate, Dana Bash, his co-host, handed him a note that said he's done. But interestingly enough, neither of them said anything about it to the public and let kind of the farce of the Biden presidency continue for far too long.
Yes.
So we'll talk a little bit about that too.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So I mean, but let's just dive right in. This over the weekend, a company called Meridian Strategies posted on X and maybe elsewhere that they had done a poll in the mayor's race. And the poll was pretty interesting. It showed that Karen Bass had extended her lead over Nithya Raman, um, and picked up a lot of supporters from Spencer Pratt's, you know, um, campaign. So, you know, immediately this poll became news. The California Post did a story on it. Karen Bass posted on social media about how
Hmm.
she was, you know, earning these Spencer Pratt um, voters, and then boom, the whole thing fell apart. So, you know, kind of walk me through like how does something like this happen in a political campaign? It seems pretty far fetched.
It was the first moment I saw this post. I literally follow Karen Bass on X and on social media. And as soon as I saw the post, I said, this doesn't make sense. And so I immediately took a look at their website, this alleged polling firm, and there was no contact information. There was no way to get a hold of the person. There was no name of any of the principals. And I thought, this is a red flag. Um, you know, Politics is a very small business in Los Angeles. Everybody knows everybody who's anybody. And when they put this scam poll together, that's basically what it was. It was a scam poll. And I don't understand. I do understand why, the intricacies of how this business works. But for her to go ahead and to basically pat herself on the back, it makes me want to question, uh, did she have knowledge of what it is that they were doing, or was it is she a victim of circumstance? I don't know the truth. I don't know if she was in on it. I don't know if her team was in on it. But all I do know is that this whole thing just fell apart, and well, it should have fell apart. Um,
So,
you know,
so let me
we
just kind of jump in, Randy.
Sure.
Um, you know, one of the things that happened as a result of the poll being published is
Hmm.
that it affected the prediction market.
Yes, it did.
Um, the prediction market has Karen Bass, you know, running like a in the 60s, you know, 62, 63% favorite, and
Hmm.
Nithya Raman running anywhere from, you know, 33 to 35 to 36% in terms
Sure.
of, you know, her chance of being elected.
Hmm.
But when this poll came out, you could see in the lines of the prediction market how Bass moved up a little bit and Raman moved down. Now, some speculate that you would put a poll out like this to cause a dip in Raman's numbers, which it did,
Hmm.
and then once the poll is discovered as being fake and her numbers come back up, you buy on the dip and sell as the market moves.
Sure.
Um, Seems like there's no indication that that was the case, but it would have been an opportunity for people to capitalize. And I'm fascinated by how the prediction market and polls are so widely varying. If you saw you know, same company, by the way, Median Strategies, did a
Sure.
poll in Wisconsin that gave a huge edge to the D.S.A. candidate
Sure.
there, and she was trounced. What's happening here? Like, you know, how do professionals deal with this?
You know what? I think it's a new odd phenomenon in politics that is becoming more and more complex. And I think at the end of the day, you just have to go ahead and focus in on your candidate and your message, and having to go ahead and get from point A to point B. Prediction markets are kind of a new thing in politics this particular cycle, to be honest with you, as compared to just 2 years ago. So I don't know how it's going to play out, to be honest with you, Frank, down the road. But I do know right now it's becoming a phenomenon. And these prediction markets. I remember the first time I was talking to a lady who was running for governor in the primary, and she said, "Oh, I'm in the top five in this prediction," and I had no idea what she was talking about until I realized what she was talking about. Then I realized that she didn't know what she was talking about, if you know what I mean. Um, politics is it's a fickle business, to be honest with you. And these prediction markets are laughable, but people are buying them. I have friends of mine, I have clients of mine that are young upstarts in politics in their 20s, and they live and breathe by these prediction markets. So
Well, so I wouldn't. I don't know, Randy. Laughable might be
I
a
don't know if
little
laughable is the
too
right word. I think
too
that's
hard.
maybe a little bit of a harsh term, but I think it's a kind of a wait and see type of a thing in regards to what to do and how to deal with this. I
It-
mean,
so
when we start betting on politics and on campaigns, I think that's a really dangerous thing.
so interestingly enough, I'm going to come back to what you just said there, but let's
Sure.
just talk a little bit about Biden Trump.
Yes.
And then Harris Trump,
Sure.
because the prediction markets were very clear um, early on in the presidential race
Sure.
in 2024 that Donald Trump would be the winner, even though the polls went back and forth. Harris is close, Harris is closer, you know, Trump's fading, but the prediction markets were pretty steady.
Yes, they were.
And isn't there, a window of opportunity for candidates and I guess for election watchers to see more truth in prediction than they do in a poll?
Again, you're betting on democracy, and you're putting money into a political campaign that at the end of the day, I just think it's a really dangerous thing. And I know a lot of people are excited about these prediction markets in regards to politics and campaigns, but at the end of the day, democracy is a fickle thing, and it's something that it's the bane of our existence. And when we start bringing in elements such as predicted markets and things like that, it kind of makes it different. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, Frank.
Yeah. Um, so, I mean, let's get down to the fallout from this, though.
Yes, of course.
So, it, it seems to me, and you've sort of touched on this a little bit, that, one, the California Post jumped on this pretty quickly, brought a lot
Boy,
of
did they
attention
ever.
to it.
Yep. 100%.
Um, so, that I think that we have this interesting news environment, right? That we
Hmm.
didn't have 2 years ago or 10 years ago, even. We have, Los Angeles Times, very much a part of the institution that is the city of Los Angeles, even if they're in El Segundo. We have the Southern California News Group that does a great job of covering the suburbs. We have a lot of little news organizations that do their best,
Hmm.
like the little engines that could. And now we have this, behemoth, the California Post, that's come in and
Yep.
is covering Los Angeles in its own way. And I think that it creates market pressure in a lot of different ways. One, the they they're going to have to be first in order to get people to follow them on social media and to go to their website and create page views. um, Two, they're going to have to get stories on the edges of the market that the other news organizations like the Times haven't been able to get. And three, they're going to have to make sure that they do that consistently over time so that they become a viable product. And I think in some sense, because it's an offshoot of the New York Post and they already had some operation here, that they've done that pretty well. But
Sure.
I mean, how do you think that all this kind of plays into promoting a poll that isn't even real?
Uh, like I said, media hysteria becomes a thing, and when one person picks it up, then another person picks it up, and then there's becomes a legitimate story. And I think one thing that the Post has been able to do is they have focused a light on politics and on issues here in Los Angeles that have sadly needed to be covered for the last several months. So I applaud them 1,000%. Joel Pollack, who is overseeing the California Post, so to speak, is I consider him a genius in politics. I also consider him somebody that I would trust. But again, at the end of the day, Frank, you know, it's like that. It's like that news rack. Remember, we had news racks when we were young people. We would go to these things there, and there'd be hundreds of magazines and newspapers and things like that. And you don't, sadly, they don't have those anymore. And
No,
I
we
think
have
that
Twitter.
we have
That's
Twitter,
our
and
newsstand.
that's our newsstand, and we don't have the traditional newspapers anymore. I mean, and that's sad for society, and that's sad for us. And I hope that the Post can go ahead and fill the void and maybe bring some excitement and some legitimacy back. But these stories in regards to these fake polls, it took a real serious journalist to be able to make a couple quick phone calls and say, wait a minute, who are these people? Instead of running with the story, you start questioning everything, and that's one thing that I do is I question everything because at the end of the day, it starts affecting these prediction markets over a fake story, and that when it gets to
Okay,
that, then we start having some problems.
so here we go.
Yes,
We have this news organization that's covered it, and then the candidate,
yeah, of course.
says the candidate comes out and says, "Hey, look, I'm
Look at
taking
me.
votes away.
Yeah,
I'm taking votes from Spencer Pratt. I'm
yeah,
taking the Spencer Pratt votes. The disaffection that that these voters had with politics as usual in Los Angeles, one would think that, well, maybe they're going to vote for Nithya Raman because she's an alternative to Karen Bass. But
yes,
this fake poll, showed the opposite, and the Bass campaign seized on it immediately. um, what kind of walk me through how a campaign or how a campaign might recover from that, or do they even need to recover from that? I mean, do they just like make a statement and you move on?
we live in a 24-hour news cycle, Frank, as you well know. And but this one here, I think, has some legitimate legs. And I think down at the end of the day, let's just see how smart Nithya Rama is, how she can parlay upon this. If I was her, I would be jumping on this every day. I would be holding press conferences. I would be doing, I really would be asking the hard questions in regards to how this took place. But I don't know if she's smart enough to be able to do that, or if I don't even know who her team is to be able to go ahead and to handle situations like this. I really don't. I don't know who these people are, to be honest with you. I mean,
Can
I
I?
know.
I want to
Yeah.
ask you a question about that. So you think that the strategy for Raman would be to highlight the fact that Bass used this fake poll, was duped by this fake poll, because it seems to me like maybe that's like an instantaneous moment, but there's all these other things that still need to be discussed.
I think she has a window of opportunity here to capitalize on it. I don't
Uh,
know why she hasn't held a press conference. Maybe she's afraid of actually having to deal with the media. On a you can't serve two masters in politics. You either have to go all in, and I don't know if she's all in yet on this. Um, but it's a great opportunity.
I find it interesting, that Bass's campaign said that, hey, they did this because it had been reported on by the California Post, and
Yes,
that's why they called attention to it.
yeah,
And
and that's BS.
yeah, why?
Because it was. I mean, the whole thing was. I don't think that Karen Bass put out her first information saying that it was a story that the California Post put together. If I remember correctly, she put this thing out because she got a copy of this poll. And I don't know who these people are who even run this poll. I don't have a name of the person who actually is in charge of this polling firm, if there is such a person. And maybe it's a I don't know who they are. Have you heard of these people's names? I haven't heard of a name.
Yeah. Well, again, they call themselves median strategies. And by the way,
Yeah, well,
they said,
come on, man. Anybody can call anything anything. I mean, have you? The website is just so innocuous, Frank. It's just it's it's sophomoric. You can tell that there's some shady stuff going on with these guys. I'd
Well,
like to
well,
find out who they are.
they said it was a short-term experiment.
Yeah, well, there's nothing short term in politics. Let's put it that way. You're
Okay.
either all in or you're not in.
I think also,
But I think it's a fascinating situation, and I hope that we can find out more about regards to the persons and who these people are.
yeah, I mean, it's a little inside baseball, but I want to go back to the bass
Sure.
stuff because
Yeah.
here's like for me, it's like one, okay, this poll failed miserably in Wisconsin.
Oh, it's
Uh,
terrible.
okay, two, um, you know, as soon as Spencer Pratt saw it, he was out there saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. This is not, I think, where Spencer Pratt voters would be going."
No, of course not.
Three, Real Clear Politics,
Hmm.
and other websites like Nate Silver didn't even include median strategies in their aggregate polls. So um, I wonder, if you're running a campaign, aren't these the things that you would look at? Like, or is it just that if anybody puts out a poll, you're just going to tout it?
Buyer beware. I would be really cautious in regards to what I promote, what I don't promote. I mean, I know just about every legitimate pollster, in America, to be honest with you, because I've dealt with dozens of them. And I know which are good ones, and I know which ones that are not, that don't have a stand. And even for, Frank, it's funny because I get polled all the time. I don't know how I do this, but I get calls probably once every 2 weeks. I'm getting a call from a pollster
Because you answered one time.
because I answered one time, and little do they know, they always ask the question, "Do you work in politics?" No, I don't work in politics. This type of stuff. So because it's interesting. It's interesting stuff, and I get it, man. I get it, but I don't trust it. I don't trust the system at all.
So not an experiment then.
Not
Some
an
kind
experiment.
of scam.
No, 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 not even close to being an experiment. Anybody can rig a poll. I can talk to a pollster right now saying I need to get this answer.
Well, I would
And
even say this isn't even rigged. It's just
it didn't
out
exist.
there.
It's just out there.
Yeah.
Let's put it out there so we can go ahead and get and make our. It's almost like to me, I don't want to vote for a candidate based upon a poll. I want to vote for a candidate because they're the best candidate who can really fix stuff. And I know right now in Los Angeles there is such a crisis going on right now, in regards to homelessness and the whole situation, that the last thing I want to do is talk to somebody who's going to go ahead and release a poll. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
So, I mean, that's kind of interesting because it kind of gets to the next story that I wanted to like
Okay.
a little bit. And so I'm a big Substack guy. I'm on
Yes.
Substack.
Yes, you
In
are.
fact, if anybody out there watching this wants to follow me on Substack, I'm at True Crime Area 51. You can find it pretty easily. It's not all true crime. There's a lot of politics and a lot of sports on there. In fact, we'll post this video there later today.
Okay, great.
Um, but I was the other morning, I was paging through Substack, and I came across a column by a reporter, Sam Quinones,
One
former
of the
LA
very best.
Times guy.
One of the very best in the business. Guys,
Absolutely. I mean,
Sam is genius.
he really is, and
He's incredibly smart.
I think that he's one of the last great journalists slash writers out there. Because he takes a journalist's approach to sticky situations,
Hmm.
and I loved how this column. Um, by the way, I don't have the title of it here, but I'll in the notes for the show I'll cite it. He talks
Yes.
about Juan Galacia,
Hmm.
an immigrant pastor contractor who saved, scrimped, did everything he could to buy a home in Los Angeles, actually in East Hollywood, in 2008, and then while living there over the past 2 decades, has watched the neighborhood deteriorate. In fact, the
It's
neighborhood
terrible.
deteriorated so much that an abandoned home in his neighborhood had squatters living in it, and they started a fire. The fire, took off and connected to other homes in the neighborhood, and in fact, one of those was Mr. Glacia's home, and it was destroyed. It wiped out his house, made his family go homeless. Um, and I think Sam brings up a lot of questions about how this happened. Well, how did this happen in Los Angeles? Um, how does this happen when we have rules about whether or not people can sleep on the street? There's police officers that should be enforcing squatters rules and that kind of stuff. And in this whole milieu, you have a guy who's worked hard for everything he's had, watch it disappear because government isn't really there to protect him or his neighborhood. That's my first takeaway. I don't know, what did you get out of this?
Yeah, first of all, it was a genius article, and it's an issue that everybody needs to become very, very aware of and very cognizant of, and everybody needs to understand it. Los Angeles is a tough place. The Los Angeles that I grew up in and you grew up in, Frank, is not the Los Angeles that we have today. And it continues to get worse before it gets better. And I think what Sam was able to capture in his piece was the emotion of the fact that there are very imperfect people out there who really trying to become good citizens in this community. And for that, I applaud that. What I don't applaud is I don't applaud these psychopathic political members of a particular faction on the Los Angeles City Council who are destroying the Los Angeles dream.
Let, let's let's say the name of the faction out loud. What are we talking about
the D.S.A, Democratic
here?
Socialists
Uh-huh.
of America, and I don't consider myself a Democrat or Republican. I consider myself right in the middle. I'm a registered non-party preference voter. But I think what has happened is telling and dangerous. I remember back probably 20 some years ago, Frank, and I think you remember this is when the Tea Party conservatives were just starting to kind of make an impact within the Republican Party, and everybody in the Republican Party was going, "Oh my God, the Tea Party is going to take over." And they got 20, 25 people elected in a couple of terms on to Congress. I don't know if this is just a fad or if it's actually got some legs. But be careful who you vote for. And I think if you truly believe that socialism is a good thing in America, these people are your cup of tea. But you have to understand exactly what socialism is and what it is not. And what it is
So
not is
I
that
think that,
it's not a political fad.
and I think that's what I mean. The article's not really like calling it out, so to speak, in this
Of
same
course.
way. It's kind of saying that, hey, in these neighborhoods that are represented by council members who are aligned with the DSA,
Hmm.
outcomes are not great.
No, they're
And
not, and
and
they're expanding, and there's more and more and more getting elected. And I mean, if you I know how many members of the Los Angeles City Council now uh, consider themselves to be part of this DSA? Is it six or seven? I mean, it's just staggering.
it, it's a number that is greater than zero. That's for sure.
That's
And
true. And if you watch these Los Angeles City Council meetings, they're comical. I mean, they're just. I mean, they have to one up themselves on their stupidity. And they, and what
I
and they
comment
Yeah,
is this comedy or tragedy, Randy?
I think it's a combination. Comedy is tragedy in a lot of ways, and it really is. It's really something that it's a dangerous slope we're all heading down right now.
So I thought the beauty of this piece, and I urge people watching this to read it,
Yes,
was that
it's an amazing
Sam
piece.
went back and looked at reporting that he had done in 2008 on Drew Street,
Mm-hmm.
where you know a pretty vicious gang had taken over this neighborhood. They not only graffitied buildings and sort of established I would say, almost a dictatorial presence there, to the point
Sure.
that landlords were even scared to come forward. Um, but the community came together with a city councilman and city government and the police department and all the agency
Mm-hmm.
of the city, and were able to sort of address the problem, get the gang members out, clean up the neighborhood. Um, you know, they got rid of one house and turned it into a community garden, and some people might call it gentrification, but in truth, isn't this the kind of neighborhood that we should all live in? And the contrast between how the city was able to pull itself together and fix the problem on
Mm-hmm.
Drew Street compared
Sure.
to how the cities um, uh, fight against rules that would prevent people from sleeping on sidewalks, rules that create a system where there's open drug markets on Skid Row, animal abuse on Skid Row, are creating a place that's dangerous for us all to live.
I don't like this trend. I think it's dangerous, and I don't know how we solve this, Frank, other than just making sure that we um, continue to be vigilant and to continue to just do shows like this and do podcasts like this. Um,
Yeah.
there's a certain mindset that's being indoctrinated into a segment of our society that frankly is a little disturbing. And I think this socialism is that particular aspect.
But see, two guys like us, talking
Yes.
about it doesn't, I mean, there's a certain segment of people that are watching this, or not, or maybe not watching it because of we are who we are, right?
Yeah, of
So,
course, yeah.
like,
I mean,
and
we
that's
didn't show up to school to take our lunch. I'll tell you that.
yeah, and I guess the to me it's like, well, don't listen to me, don't listen to Randy, read this Substack, because Sam gets to the heart of it. It's like, hey, these organizations that purport to talk about protecting immigrants or the poor or people who are addicted
Hmm.
actually engage in um, mismanagement that hurts the poor, hurts immigrants, and hurts drug addicts
Yes, it
in
does.
a way that you know ends up hurting all of us.
Yes, it does. You know what? Uh, this issue is personal to me. I'm a former addict. I have 24 years of clean time under my belt right now. But it's messy. Addiction is a very terrible thing. And to get yourself out of addiction, you have to really. I mean, they say you have to change everything, and that's really true. You have to change everything, and I think it's more of a situation where uh, you got to hit bottom before you can figure it out. Uh, I don't wish it upon anybody, but I do know it's a very tragic situation, and it needs to be dealt with in society. That's another reason why I worked so closely with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on his presidential campaign, because I think one thing that Mr. Kennedy and I bonded upon, one of our very first conversations we had together, was over addiction, and having worked with his campaign for such a long time, I understand what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and how you can work a program. And I hate to use that term, work a program, but it doesn't take a lot to become an addict, but it takes a lot to to not become one. And you got to stick to your abilities and your faith, and you have to understand the dangers of what it is. And I think this article that Sam Quinones wrote, it hit home to me. I used to live in that area. I used to live in that neighborhood. I mean, when I was caught up in my addiction, I lived in East Hollywood. I lived in Silver Lake. It's not a pretty place, but it's a place that is home to many people. But again, it's a real personal manner, and I think he handled it absolutely masterfully.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So I may like, but I think I'm gonna have to add the glib uh, finisher to this, and
Uh-oh.
that is you talk about hitting rock bottom.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I mean, where's LA's rock bottom, Randy?
Um, if this isn't rock bottom, I mean, we can look about what happened during the Rodney King riots, those types of things. That was pretty bad. I remember living in LA at the time on Bedford Street off of Pico and La Cienega, and we kept saying to ourselves, well, we're not going to do any looting because that's just wrong. But then again, we said, well, there is this one store. If they happen to go ahead and go in, maybe I'll go ahead and take my chances. Um, but everybody thought that was rock bottom. I don't think we're there yet in LA, but I think we're getting there in regards to a new bottom.
So,
And
you know,
this and then to come back to this mayoral race.
thank
Whatever
you. That's
happens
where I
in
was
this
gonna
race,
go.
yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe we haven't hit rock bottom yet. And I don't know. You look at these two candidates, and I mean, it's scale of 1 to 10. I give them probably a 3 combined. I mean, there's just no selection in regards to these two people that you can vote for. It's like voting for Dumb and Dumber.
But don't you think that that the problem is that you have to make a choice,
You
right?
got to make a choice. Yeah,
Like
exactly.
yeah,
Do you stick with what you know? I mean, Karen Bass has been around long. I don't think Karen Bass has ever lost an election. I know Javier Becerra probably has never lost an election. These people have been around in society and in our communities for generations now. Do you stick with what you know, or do you take a chance on what you don't know? And I think that's the question that everybody has in their minds right now.
right, right, and yeah, hopefully pieces like this one that we're talking about at least put some focus on the issue, right?
Oh, of course, 100%, 100%.
So, all right, so let's go to the last topic here. And
Let's
and
do
that
it.
I mean it's a campaign topic. It is a
Sure.
campaign topic.
Yes, it is.
Um, so June 2024,
Mm-hmm.
uh, almost 2 years ago.
Yep.
So there's this CNN debate. We got Donald Trump and Joe Biden, um, and I mean I know many people watched this. Joe Biden's performance was terrible. You couldn't avoid it,
Mm-mm.
couldn't hide it. Um, it, it, it- but neither Tapper nor Bash, two top line reporters at CNN, pressed him on it at the time.
No.
Eh, at least in this public forum, right? But
But
recently, turns out that Tapper and Bash were exchanging notes with one another, saying what a disaster it was. And I'm wondering, you know, okay, so what's the responsibility of the reporters to, call it out in real time, or to call it out, a month later when Biden was still, in the race?
mhm.
Where does the responsibility lie, right? Or is there responsibility to call this stuff out?
I think the role of a journalist is to be able to go ahead and to act traditionally as a journalist. And I think a lot of times there is a blurred line now in regards to what is a journalist and what is somebody who is a social media influencer. Social media influencers are not true journalists. They're social media influencers for a reason. And I think the Jake Tappers and the Dana Bashes of the world, I mean, they have an obligation to their trade and also uh, to their art form and also to the viewer. in regards to being able to call this stuff out. And I think that that was a disservice, 100% on what they did that
So
night. I think everybody saw in real time the tragedy of Joe Biden. And he hasn't gotten any better. He's gotten worse. And it wasn't a bad debate performance, just who he is. God bless
wait,
him.
wait, wait, wait. What did you just say? It wasn't a bad debate performance. That's just who he is.
It
What do you
wasn't
mean by that?
necessarily. I just think that's just who Joe Biden is nowadays. I don't think he's the brightest.
Oh, now,
I, I,
okay.
yeah, yeah. I don't think he was. I don't think he was ever the brightest guy to win. I just think he was a really good. He was just good for what he did. That doesn't make him a good president or a bad president. It just was his. It's just what he was. And I
Gotcha.
think, yeah. So I mean, that's kind of where I came from on that particular
So,
situation.
so I, I probably took you down the wrong rabbit hole because I want to pull it back to the media here. And what is this? What is the fact that they're exchanging notes with one another, questioning the president's performance? Dana Bash, having a note that said something along the lines of "he's done." What does this say about the media landscape? Are are reporters too in to be able to, you know, be the face of the public in a situation like this?
That's a great point, Frank. And I think you've hit upon something here. And I don't. I think that's what separates real journalists from people who are influencers. And I think once we, I remember when I used to turn on CNN and some of the other stations where I would actually watch news. Now we don't watch news. We watch panels and we watch heated discussions and we go back and forth. And I would love to be able to turn on television and actually watch news. I think that's one of the reasons why I love watching BBC is because they report the news, good and bad and indifferent. At least you know what you're watching. I think the entertainment of news is a dangerous thing, and I think that's what we've gotten down to right now. This is these entertainment, the entertainmentization of television news is a dangerous precedent, and I think we have to get back to some of our traditional roots.
So I think that's very
I think the
interesting because it kind
I,
of
I
like,
think the only legitimate news program on Fox News is Brett Baer. To be honest with you, I mean his 1 hour show a day really talks about news. And I mean, and I love my friends like Todd Pyro and some of the others I consider really good friends who work in the middle of the night. But again, they're more entertainment based as opposed to being news based, and
well, I
I
mean,
think that
isn't that,
that's dangerous.
doesn't that kind of go back to the whole reason of the California Post reporting that poll? I mean, if we, if you put this all together in kind of a
Sure.
big package, what we have is, media organizations that need to survive. And the only way that they can survive is if they have viewers. And how do you capture viewers? If on Fox, we have, a leggy, good-looking,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and a very, I guess, attractive reporter. I know this is very cliche observation. I mean, it doesn't that though necessarily, just draw you to watch Fox regardless of what they say, as opposed to, if you turn on some of the other networks, you get people that are, kind of telling you how to live your life and um, and being, it's like, well, it's really, I feel it's like lifestyle based, right?
Yes, it is.
Hey, this is my lifestyle. I want this. I want this news to echo my beliefs, as
Of course.
opposed to this is my lifestyle and I want that news to echo my beliefs.
One of my good friends is Alex Michelson with CNN, and I consider Alex a really good friend. But Alex is right out of Central Casting. He's tall, he's good looking, he's very articulate. Um, but I think that helps. I mean, looks matters in television, and especially in television news. It doesn't make it a good thing or bad things, but it's just kind of a reality of where we're at.
Yeah.
give me somebody who is a solid journalist. I will applaud them 1,000,000%. And I think this slope that we're going down over looksism is very dangerous.
So I don't want to make this a referendum on Alex, but I happen to think he's a great reporter.
I love
You know,
Alex. I think he's amazing. Yeah, I think he's great. I thought he was fantastic when he worked for Fox in L.A. I mean, he was incredible.
well, I, you know, I think that he so distinguished himself by covering state politics in a way that hadn't been done for years.
No, he hasn't.
Um,
No, you're correct. Absolutely correct.
and and uh, and I think he distinguished himself by in so many ways, like showing up to work and being eager to work and being, kind of like becoming the face of the local TV station in the town that he grew up in. There's a lot of admirable qualities about Alex, and y- eh, but I think that going to the big networks like CNN or Fox or CNBC or MS Now,
Hmm.
have a tendency to, you know, inculcate you into the culture of the network. And
Yes, I do.
I hope that he's able to, avoid that um, as much as possible. He's just such a great reporter and such a good TV person.
He's the whole package in my book. I mean, I really have so much admiration for him, and again, he's the perfect package, to be honest with you. And
Right.
I had some guys who were his former producers who I worked with on a regular basis and at Fox in L.A. And God bless him.
Yeah. But let's
God
go
bless him,
back
man.
because I God bless him. Let's I want to go back to the other CNN people that we're talking about, and
Sure.
that is like what w- how do they recover from this? Like how do they recover from kind of covering up for maybe cover up is too strong of a phrase, but how do they recover from protecting the president at a time when maybe the American people needed to know a little bit more about the president's actual condition, and then waiting until it was safe to tell people, "Hey, I knew this back then." How do they recover? How do they recover their credibility from being in a situation like that?
You know what? That I don't have an answer for, but all I do know is that the truth will set you free, and everything comes out. And I think what's coming out with uh, former President Biden now is sad and tragic. And we've got ourselves into a really bad situation.
Okay, but there is an election coming up
Yes, there is.
um, in 2 years,
Yep.
and I think that I've looked at some of the polls and the prediction market. I assume you have too.
Sure, of course.
What does your crystal ball tell you?
Yeah, I have some preferences on who I'm kind of looking at. I think the thing that's interesting is that it's an open horse race on both sides, on the Democratic side and on the Republican side. So for that matter, it's something that is going to be historic in nature, and it's going to bring out vast amounts of candidates who are going to seek a public place on that stage. And I think at the end of the day, America wins. And I think the more participation we can get from people, the better it's going to be.
That's a very
How's that for a diplomatic
a
answer?
very interesting, yeah, not real controversial.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was
I
pretty
mean,
milk toast.
I think um,
Listen,
if
I
like I
worked,
know
I
said
worked, I worked my ass off for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. when he ran for president. I was Mr. Kennedy's
right.
senior advisor. I love Bobby. I think Bobby would make a great president. But the fact of the matter is that I think his time has passed. Uh, we worked really hard to be able to get him from point A to point B. But
Well,
those are the
I
type
don't know if he's probably not running, right?
yeah, maybe I don't know who's going to run and who's not going to run. I
But you see,
really,
but see,
I really don't.
here's the thing though, and here's what it sets up. And we can talk about this on another
Of
at
course, yeah.
another time. But
This is a
here's
whole other show.
right. But here's what I think it sets up. I think that this sets up a situation where you have cabinet members like Rubio, Hegseth, Vance,
Hmm.
maybe even Bobby, running against each other, creating
Yep.
tension, within the administration.
Sure.
And on the other side, you have this kind of alignment that we're talking about here in Los Angeles, where you have some candidates who are DSA type candidates.
Hmm.
I'm thinking of AOC being a prime example versus, the kind of traditional Dem. John Ossoff might fall into that category.
Sure.
And then, but then you've got the big behemoth in the room, and that's Gavin Newsom with
Of
potentially
course.
50 or more electoral votes coming from California.
My good buddy Gavin,
Yeah, your good buddy.
my good pal.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
you can still opine on this. It's not like it's you can still.
listen. Politics is an interesting business. That's why I've dedicated my life to public, to the public, and getting these people, good people elected. And taking on a good fight. I don't mind that. I think it's kind of fun.
Well, that's awesome to have you on the podcast, Randy.
I love you, Frank,
Um,
man. It's a great opportunity, and I'm looking forward to expanding this and seeing what happens next.
yeah, well, let's take it to the next step.
We will.
Tell people watching this where they might find you on social media or elsewhere.
You know what? I started a new X feed called Real Randy Economy 66. So you can follow me there, and yeah. So you can just kind of look me up, and I'm around, man.
Okay,
I'm
wait.
here
Let
if
me
you
ask
need
you
me.
about Real Randy Economy 66.
I think that's the name of my new X feed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just started it a couple weeks ago. I had,
Okay.
yeah, I was in like X nightmare for a while there. So
Wow. Well, Twitter/X can cause headaches and nightmares with ease.
you got you have to be diligent to go ahead and figure it out,
Yeah.
and to participate in this social media world.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that folks follow, like, and subscribe. We'll have this posted around the social media networks later on this
Great.
week, and we'll figure out what our next episode is and when it's coming. And
Let's
thank
get
you,
it done,
Randy, for
man.
being here. Thanks, Ricky, for doing the engineering on this podcast today.
You
And
guys are
we'll see you
awesome,
soon.
man. God bless you, buddy. Ciao for now.
Okay.